In this demo, I'm going to show you how to use implicit data templates to automatically associate a data template with a data-bound object based on its type. Starting point for this demo is the ending point from the last one where we showed explicit data templates. To get started here, I'm going to add a new view and view model. I'm going to call the view Data Template Selectors View because we're going to use it in a subsequent demo for that purpose. And then I'll add a class that's called Data Template Selectors View Model. In the view, I'm going to add a single element, which is a text block that just says Data Template Selectors View, so we know when that view is presented. Basically, what we're going to be setting up here is the ability to switch between child views between our explicit data template view and our data template selectors view, and do that using implicit data templates. So I'm going to go back to my explicit data template view and get rid of the explicit setting of the data context here, because this is going to end up being done now automatically through implicit data templates. Now we're going to need some logic to switch between the explicit data template view and the data template selectors view. And we're going to put that logic in a view model for the main window. So I'm going to add a new view model called main window view model. And we're going to first make this a proper view model by implementing the iNotifyPropertyChanged interface. And then we're going to statically wire this up to our main window by setting the data context in the main window, similar to what we saw in the previous demo. I'm going to get rid of this explicit instance of our explicit data templates view. And what we're going to do is drop back into our view model and declare a property called current view model. So the idea is that we can set an instance of a view model into this property and data bind to it from the main window, and that will cause the current rendered child view to switch out. So now we need some view models to switch between. I'm going to pop in here two more member variables, one an instance of our explicit data templates view model, and one an instance of our data template selectors view model. Now we need some logic that's actually going to switch between those two, and we're going to do that with commands. So I've added two relay commands to my main window view model, view1 command and view2 command that can be triggered from the main window. You can see the handling is simply to set the current view model to the respective view model. That will trigger a property changed, and now we can set up some data binding in the view to cause the right view to be rendered for that view model using implicit data templates. So we're going to go up here to our main window and replace our main grid with a grid that has two rows in it. The first row has a stack panel with two buttons. Each button is wired up to its respective command, view1 command and view2 command, on the current data context, which is our main window view model. Then in the second row, we just have a content control. The content control in WPF is a nice little container control that you set the content to some UI element, and that UI element will be rendered out in the child area of that control. Now you can set the content property explicitly to a UI element, or you can set the content property to a data-bound object and use data templates to render out that object. So here you can see I'm setting the content property to our current view model property back in our main window view model. Now, as we saw in previous demos, if we did nothing else, it would just do a toString on whatever that view model is, and it wouldn't look the way we want it. So what we want to do is supply a data template that's going to be automatically married up with the appropriate view model type to render out a corresponding view for that view model. So what I can do is go up here in my window and add a resources section. And in that resources section, I define two data templates. One that is mapped through the data type property to the explicit data templates view model type. Notice the X-type markup extension here. It's very easy to forget this, and if so, your data templates won't work correctly. But anytime you set the data type property, notice we don't have to set a key even though we're in a resource dictionary, because the key will implicitly be the data type. But what's going to happen here is that anything that's data bound where this resource is in scope, specifically our content control that's binding content to one or the other of those view model types, the data binding is actually going to look out into all the resources that are currently in scope, see if there is a data template mapped to the type of the object that's currently being rendered, and if so, it will render out whatever the contents of that data template are. The contents of this data template is nothing more than our user control that represents our view in the MVVM pattern. And remember that I said in the previous demo that whenever a data template is rendered out, whatever the root element of that data template is, will have its data context set to the data object for which it's being rendered. So basically the view's data context will be set to the instance of the view model that it's being rendered out for. So we have one map to one view model type, one map to another view model type. And again, we're switching which view model is being set in the command handling of our main window view model. With that code in place, I can go ahead and run. And now we can see the two buttons up at the top. I can click on the data template selectors view. We switch to that one. I can click on the explicit data templates view and we switch to that one. And again, the chain of events there are we're clicking on the button that fires the command. The command is wired up to set one or the other view model as the current view model. That triggers a property change on the current view model, which is bound to the content property. Now that a new data object has showed up in the content property through a binding, control goes out and looks in the available resources, finds the corresponding data template mapped to that data type, and renders out the corresponding view for it, setting the data context of that root element of the data template to whatever the data object is it's mapped to. And that's how you can use implicit data templates to render out views and view models. Implicit data templates can also certainly be used for heterogeneous collections. Say that you had a bunch of subtypes of product that you were going to render out in a list box, and you wanted to have a different data template for each subtype of a product. You could use the data type to map to those concrete types of the derived types, and then you could have a list box bound to a collection of products. And then as it looped through rendering out each product, it would find the corresponding data template based on the data type for the concrete type of product that you're dealing with and would render out that template.